Okay, sounds good. Well, we've got 3 minutes before, or if that 2.5 minutes before our meeting starts. So if we have questions, let's hold those during the meeting. So thank you, Mr. Lowe. Appreciate your passion and how you presented. Thank you. We will take a brief respite and then pick up again in 2 minutes.
Just so you know, okay. Usually it's not a problem, but just
okay. Good to know. So here's this. This came to, I'm not sure if it came to everybody. Okay, well there were, I had the 5 signatures, so I wanted to make sure that the actual signatures went someplace. Okay. So let's bring it up here.
Just on the side. Okay. Thank you. Actually, if you could see
and mean old Greenwich time.
Yeah, it's the world clock, and actually it's held in Boulder. Yeah, the world clock is actually in Boulder. It's kept.
Interesting.
Well, that's the official area, but the clock itself is in Boulder.
Is it on the hill in one of those malls?
I have no idea where it's at. Call to order this meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees on this, the 18th of September, 2017. We would like to invite Monument Police Explorer Sergeant Logan Very, who's a pledge, to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Kaiser?
Here.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Here.
Trustee Elliott?
Here.
Trustee Medlicott?
Here.
Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Here.
Before us, we have a consent agenda. Are there any comments, questions regarding such?
Right here. Ms. Hogan, thank you very much for your comprehensive detailing of the last meeting. There are a few inclusions I think would be important to add to the record for the minutes of the last meeting. I know it's impossible to capture it all, but definitely I think a few of note that I would like to see included. Specific to the dialogue with Ordinance 17/2017, I did not see any mention of a variety of trustees made comments with that, and I know specifically me, I had made significant commentary regarding Title 17 of our municipal code. I would like to see my comments added to the record for that. Additionally, I believe Trustee Murphy had commentary outlining the developers or the applicants' commitment to continue working with residents to find a satisfactory outcome. Other than that, regarding Ordinance 18/2017, I would also like it noted on the record that the pilot representative indicated that he had personal discussions regarding this project outside of the public hearing with individual members of the board. And I'd also like the comment added where specific members of this board made reference to being exposed to opinions and thoughts expressed on social media. The reason for all this is we definitely don't want to give the appearance that anything outside of the last meeting influenced any voter decision making. Other than that, it looks great.
Additional comments, questions? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Kaiser?
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Public hearing to consider Resolution 25-2017. Mr. Lowe, would you take us into this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The memorandum before you in the board packet kind of sets forth the procedural method that we follow to get where we are. I don't, Forrest hasn't been in. There's Forrest. Forrest who's just coming in. Forrest and I have been discussing this, gosh, for several months. In terms of essentially there's an issue in the Village Center Metro District where the mill levy that currently exists does not provide enough revenue for the district to take care of its own maintenance. When it was formed, it was a full-service Metro District, so it was responsible for its streets and sidewalks and everything else, water, stormwater, all of those things. Because of some vagaries in the economy and as the Metro District proceeded, the reserve fund began to sink, and it's supposed to not do that. It's supposed to go the other way. And they use that up to pay the deficiencies for their annual operating. So they have worked awfully hard. The board, especially Forrest, has, I know from the many meetings that he has worked as diligently. Those members have been extremely well served by his leadership. I wish we'd seen that level of leadership on that board throughout its existence. And has worked very hard and diligently to try and come up with a method to right that revenue deficiency. And essentially, they have asked that they have an idea of how they would do that. And the Title 32 provides a method for amending a service plan. And they would like the road maintenance and construction to be removed from their service plan and taken on by the town. And they are asking that they then be allowed to raise their mills on themselves and limit the bondholders to 35 mills. That they would then believe that that would produce enough revenue to cover their operating expenses as long as the town was covering the portion that is removed from that service plan. We've done some analysis of that. You've got the cost that we believe would be there, essentially $250,000 a year. Obviously, some of those first roads are now becoming 10 years old. That's about when streets begin to have some significant need in repair, so you'd be taking on some expense there. The lane miles there are almost 40% of our total lane miles that we manage, so it's a fairly significant increase in the lane miles that we would have to maintain. Obviously, those costs are in perpetuity. They go into anytime those roads are degraded to the point they need to be rebuilt. That would be the responsibility of the town. Right now, it's the responsibility of the Metro District. So they are here today asking to make those modifications. The fiscal impact is about $250,000 a year just for road maintenance. Plus, we'd take over the snow plowing, I think. And there's a calculation in there that does discuss the cost for that increase as well. And as this is a policy decision, the staff doesn't have a recommendation. We just presented to you what we thought was important in terms of understanding how we've gotten to where we are with respect to this Metro District. Because of the Title 32 statutory construction, there must be a public hearing held for any amendment to the service plan. So that's what you have before you tonight, is just the hearing portion. You are not required to take any action at this point. You have 20 days from today's hearing to act. So you're not forced to act tonight. You can take in the comments and those that are here for the public hearing, and then you have the options that I've outlined in the memo for you when you do take action. Be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
All right, very good. I understand we have a presentation from the Metro District. Is that correct? All right, so why don't we invite them to come forward, and then I'm sorry?
Sorry, I didn't see a presentation on that.
Yeah,
They have an opportunity to speak in support of their petition.
Okay.
If they wish to.
all right. Would you come forward, state your name, and if you'd sign in when you're done.
I will, thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, my name is Alan Pogue. I'm legal counsel to Village Center Metropolitan District. Presentation is much more procedural in nature. I think the background, I think you've gotten a pretty good background from the town manager. There are essentially two components to what's before you tonight. The first piece is to allow the district, and the district through its board, to increase its mill levy to cover its operating costs. The district in 2008 issued approximately $8 million worth of bonds, prior board, and pledged 35 mills to repay those bonds. At the time those bonds were issued, the financial projections upon which the bond issuance were based anticipated significantly higher assessed value over the life of the bond offering than has turned out to be the case. With that, I think the district board was advised in 2008 that 35 mills, which was the maximum and currently allowed in the service plan, would be more than enough to service the debt on those bonds and operate the district. That has not turned out to be the case. So the entirety of the 35 mills is now being pledged to the bondholder, and even that, in the current climate, until build-out, is not completely covering the debt service obligation of the district. But that is the maximum amount that the district's legally required to pledge to pay those bonds. So the first piece of what the district's asking you to consider tonight would be to increase the maximum mill levy that this district can impose from 35 to 50. The debt portion of that mill levy cap would be 35. No requirement to go above that to repay debt. And then 15 mills would be available to operate the district. Based on current assessed value, and Forrest, you may have to help me out with the numbers, the additional 15 mills is expected to generate about $150,000 to $160,000 a year, which will cover almost exactly what the district's operating budget appears to be going forward. It's about $130,000, $135,000 operating budget, without any reserve component or with any contingencies in that number. The second piece, what's before you tonight, is the road maintenance and snow plowing issue that the town manager referred to. Currently, the district has been, I guess, maintaining to the extent the roads have been maintained. Those roads, I believe, are owned by the town, but because the district has the authority in its service plan to maintain and not only construct but also maintain roadways, that's where the obligation has rested. And the district is requesting that the town take on that responsibility as the owner of the roads. The district simply does not have the wherewithal to take care of its additional park and recreation improvements, which are essentially passive parks, irrigate those, run its general administrative obligations, and remove snow and maintain those roadways. So those are the two pieces of the action that's before you. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We've also got at least 4 of the district board members are here this evening and would be happy to answer questions or fill in any gaps that I may have left in the background.
Very good, thank you, sir. Questions from the board?
So your current operating costs are not covered by your current intake, essentially?
Correct. Currently, there is no intake from a property tax standpoint because it's all going to pay pre-existing debt. And so the district is charging and collecting, charging and collecting $7 per month per home per lot to purchase the water or pay the water bill that it incurs to irrigate the irrigated areas, park areas, the sod areas within the development.
And if we approve this,
Thank you.
the $170-ish thousand that you would, the district would collect would go only to parks?
It would go to general administrative and overhead of the district, and it would go to all the maintenance of the district's park areas.
Leaving no money for plowing or road maintenance.
Right.
Correct.
I guess my question is, what administrative costs do you have that tally up to $170,000 a year?
I think that the operating budget's actually about 135 projected for next year. Accounting cost, management cost, there is some legal, this year it's been more, hopefully next year we'll go back, way back down. And then the cost of maintaining those park areas, which when the original development was envisioned back in 2004, it did not include the magnitude of parks that are currently there. So it's a higher maintenance and operating budget because of that.
And how much would the Metro District be able to compensate the town for $250,000 a year that we would have to incur?
The discussions that we've had at this point have not included any compensation to the town. If that's something that we need to go back to the town manager and discuss, we can look at that. But at a 50 mil maximum, with 35 of that pledged for debt repayment, there's not a whole lot of room in the budget.
I just have to say that's a tough pill to swallow for the rest of the town, to go to the people and say, you're not gonna get paved this year, because Village Metro can't come up with the money.
Yeah, I understand that from the town's perspective. I understand it from the district's perspective. Everybody in this room inherited a situation, and what we've done to this point is to try to come up with an alternative way to get through this, and that's what's in front of you tonight.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Yes, sir.
Education, I guess, for myself, what happens, I mean, from a legal standpoint, what happens if you are unable to meet your operating expenses, everything that's currently being taxed is going to the debt obligations, and, I mean, what happens if you cease to exist? I mean, what options? I mean, obviously you don't have a lot of options, but what happens?
We wouldn't cease to exist.
Okay.
But the district would be in a position where it would have to impose significant fees on the property owners in order to generate revenue to do whatever its operating obligations might be. It would most likely result in a very low level of maintenance and repair on the roadways, and probably a significantly scaled back park maintenance program because of the cost, and the cost of irrigation, the cost of the trees, and all of the replacements that come in. So they would have to do the same thing any other government would do in a tight situation, have to cut services.
Just a question, what do you mean by significant fees? I mean, you shared that right now there's a $7 a month fee imposed upon each lot home. So when you refer significant fees, what does that mean?
Putting aside the road maintenance costs and any contribution discussion about that, just for the $130,000, say $130,000 to $150,000 operating budget that we've looked at for next year without roads, that's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of what, $40, $50 per home per quarter. Is that what you said to me earlier today?
Okay, well, I have some other input on this whole, I think
Yeah,
we're working
just
with
to answer-
different numbers here that isn't quite there. We'd have to raise it through fees, the same amount that we're
That's what-
requesting for mill levies. It's just that then we're in the collection business, number one. And secondly, it's not tax deductible. So it's to the advantage to do it through mill levies over fees.
Well, so let me answer the question, because there's a lot more to just the answer to the question. But approximately a 15 mil increase, which is what the district's asking the town to approve, is gonna generate, like I said before, about $160,000 a year. So I believe what I heard earlier today was that works out to roughly $50 per home per quarter.
It ends up being about, well, we're already collecting 7, so it would probably be about $33 more per month.
Okay, per month, I'm sorry,
Per
that was
month.
not per, so $40 a month per house, ballpark. Then, to the point though about being in the collecting business, as the town knows, property taxes are collected by the county, and they're not something that the town incurs significant cost to chase down people who don't pay their property taxes. The same thing for the district. When you impose fees, those are not collected by the county. The district has to go and collect those, and the district has the right to lien property, the right to foreclose on those liens, but that costs money. And yes, the statute does entitle the district to cover its costs, but this district doesn't have room in the budget to front those costs to go out and do a lot of that collecting work. So taxes are preferred, and they're deductible on most people's federal income tax.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
So, if you weren't able to raise the mill levy, your residents would have to pay a fee to maintain, and you're just talking about covering the 130 to 140 million.
Correct.
Or 130, 140,000.
Right.
On our side, as far as the town, if you assess that fee on top of raising the mill levy, that covers the costs that our residents would be paying to maintain your roads, in the sense that we're taking money from the rest of our residents to take care of that. Would you not be able to just assess a fee on top of that?
I think the question is less, would we not be able to? The question is, what would it do to the owners in the subdivision? What would their tolerance for that additional tax and fee be? And I think it would be pretty difficult for that to be acceptable to the property owners.
But it should be acceptable for the rest of the residents in the town.
Well, the
Cover
town,
the
I mean,
costs.
again, the town and this district inherited a situation, and the town does own the roads. The people that live there are part of the town. So they're seeking some assistance, some help, frankly, with the problem that they didn't make.
Okay.
Additional questions from the board?
Could I speak?
In a minute.
Yeah.
Mr. Lowe, can you confirm that the town does indeed own the roads?
Yeah, just as we own the roads in all of our metro districts, those districts also pay for their maintenance.
Okay, so we own the Tri-View roads?
We do.
Okay, very good, thank you. Question, sir. The extra 15 mils, is there any way that the bondholders can claim that?
No.
Okay, what about if a default of payment happened to take place? Would that then allow them to claim that extra 15 mils in order to,
It's what you mean by default.
well, let's say,
If the
okay,
district is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so if there is they have a payment due to the bondholders. Let's just say the payment is for X and they can only come up with Y for that payment. They are then in default of their payment to the bondholders. Does the legal situation change for them in that situation where now they only had claim to 35 mils? Would they then have the legal claim for the additional 15 mils?
So in your example, there would not be a default because the district's obligation is to impose 35 mils maximum, collect it and remit it. If that's not enough to make the scheduled debt service payment, the bondholder took that risk when the bondholder purchased those bonds. So that would not be a default and it wouldn't entitle them to anything. If the district chose, for whatever reason, not to impose the 35 and just, we're not gonna give you anything, we're not gonna do anything, that would be a default. But the remedy to the bondholder would not allow the bondholder to obtain a pledge greater than 35 mils. There will be cost added on, So whatever the total repayment cost might be, the interest rate's gonna go up. It would be a default interest rate. There'd be collection costs tacked onto the end, but it wouldn't get them in a given year access to more than the 35.
Okay. So to my understanding, the current 35 is to the debt service, correct?
Correct.
And that there's an additional need to overcome or to take care of the maintenance and overhead general administration that you talked about.
Correct.
But that still falls short of the roads and snow removal. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. I just want to make sure of that. Any additional comments from the board?
Is there any communication, or I don't know much about the bond, is there any way to lower that?
Well,
With
it
the
would
bond?
require, theoretically, yes, I would say highly unlikely, but I mean, if the bondholder were to agree to a lesser pledge, then legally it could be accomplished. I don't like our chances of getting the bondholder to agree to that, considering they're already looking at not getting, the return that they originally expected.
Has there been any communication with them on that, or is the bondholder aware of your situation?
The trustee is. We don't communicate directly with the
Right.
bondholders. So, yeah, but the trustee is aware.
Okay.
All right. Additional comments from the board? All right, let's open this up for public discussion. Anybody that would like to come forward and speak against this is welcome to do so. Per CRS 24-6-402, oh, excuse me, wrong one. Let's go the correct one. Municipal Code 2.04.030.J2B, public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone would like to speak against this ordinance? Please come forward.
Yeah, I'll
Yes,
start
sir.
out.
All right.
So actually, Matt Dickens.
Okay,
I
and
was back in the military for a minute there.
okay, and we'll ask you, and you do wish to speak against this, is this
Yes,
correct?
I do
Okay,
wish to speak against
and we'll
it.
ask you
Some
to
clarification.
sign in as soon as you're done, if you would, please.
Absolutely, no problem, sir. So calculating it with my math, right, we're looking at 150 to 160K increase. However, you want to remove road maintenance and snow plow. So I would like to see what are the figures of what you paid for road maintenance and snow plow to come up with the 15 mil increase, even though you're taking away services. Okay? So that would be the first thing that I would like to look at. And then the second question is you mentioned $7 per month. However, I paid $252 for the year. So in my math, that's $21 per month, which is triple what you're saying that we are actually paying. So I'd like clarification on exactly what are our dues and did I overpay? And then if the mill increase is approved through the town and then the actual levy is increased, are we going to receive a refund for our overpayments? Those are kind of my questions.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
At the end of public comments, we will invite, and I forget the gentleman's name, did he leave?
No.
Oh, okay, there you go. We'll invite you to come back for rebuttal on this. So if you could take notes of questions like this gentleman here asked, that would be great. That'll be appropriate for you to address during your rebuttal remarks. Okay. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Anybody else wishing to speak against this ordinance? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone who would like to come and speak for this ordinance?
Yes, first of all, Mr. Lowe, when we had all these discussions, I think you said that it would be $130,000 for the road, not $250,000. Has that changed, or maybe some numbers have changed in the process? Because that was what Mr. Martinez quoted is the cost per year to maintain and do snow removal.
I don't ever recall being as low as 130, but
I think that's what he printed out in the working copy off of there. And obviously that's significant for the trustees, is if it's not 250,000, it's only 130,000, because the basic idea is we wanted to split the cost, plus the net, to split the net. Secondly, in response to what you're saying, we bill quarterly $21 a quarter. I don't know what you're paying you may be confusing your HOA fees with the fees to the Metro District. Otherwise,
But he said seven.
$7 a month.
we pay at $21 a quarter, which is, because we're having to bill to collect that. What was the other question?
So I guess my question would be, of that $21 then that I pay per quarter, how much of that goes towards road maintenance and snow?
All of that goes towards water. Before we instituted that, we didn't have any parks and all. So all that just went straight toward watering all the common spaces, the parks, and everything else.
Parks are all dead this summer.
What's that?
The parks were dead.
Well, they're very alive now.
Except all summer.
That's the process. The other thing I wanted to comment was, as far as what our budget goes, we're required to not just take care of parks and common spaces. We pay the electricity for the lights, street lights. We are responsible for flood control and all drainage issues. So that's where that, I mean, and our best, tightest budget comes to $135,000 a year, not including snow removal. Snow removal for us costs, we budget about $25,000 a year for snow removal.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. If you'd sign in, please, that would be great. Thank you. Anybody else from the public who would like to speak on behalf of this ordinance? All right, hearing none. We will like to invite this gentleman to come back, and if he has any closing remarks, if he would like to address them.
Thank you. I think the questions were answered.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, $7 a month, $21 a quarter was the charge that the district imposes for water. So, and you add one together.
And that would be dropped.
That would
with
go
this
away.
mill levy.
Yeah,
That
in
goes
fact,
away with
the
mill
district
levy.
board approved today. If the town board approves this, and the increase is implemented, that the $7 a month would go away.
Okay, all right.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. So we'll bring this back to the board. We have a couple options here. We can digest the additional information that we have received this evening, and we can proceed to forward with a vote, or we can exercise our 20-day period to review this further and vote, which would be the next meeting on the 2nd of October, and that would be required per statute to do that. Trustee Koopman, you had additional comments?
Yes, Mr. Barrett, I just wanted to clarify. So this is broken out, as suggested, this is broken out into two different motions, essentially, or two different actions. One, to allow them to increase their mill levy to cover their operating costs. The second would be to discuss the maintenance, the roads, things coming to our responsibility from the town standpoint as far as what we're agreeing to. Is that correct, or is it all presented as one?
It's all presented as one. Now, you do have the option to approve it with conditions, so you could say, we're gonna do one thing and leave this condition in there, or you do have that option. But the way that it's been presented to you is to do both, to increase the mill levy and to also take over the snowplow and maintenance of the roads.
Would it be possible to vote on one, break it out with an amendment motion to break out one section and then table the other for a later time?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yes, sir.
So I would just, commentary, I guess?
Sure, oh, of course, yeah,
I would
continue.
like, personally, I would like to entertain the thought of waiting to discuss this a little bit further. I think there's a lot of components to it. Rather than yang or naying, it needs to be separated to look at two. One, what they're obligated to ask for to be able to cover their operating expenses versus what we're willing to do to work with them to help out the extras that may not be covered with that.
And that's fine, it just has to be done at the next meeting. So at the next meeting, you either have to approve it, disapprove it, or approve it with conditions.
Okay.
We have to take action on it and adopt a resolution.
Agreed. So Trustee Koopman has expressed an opinion or a preference to delay our action till the October 2nd meeting to consider this further. Do we have additional thoughts on the delay?
Mr. Lowe, could we get relook at the cost? Was there any confusion there, or?
No, I think that Enforce is correct. He was relying on the Mr. Martinez, our engineering inspector, some rough costs that he put together for just what it would take to be, just in the next 5 years, just for the maintenance of the road to get it to where we would take it in. We had discussed that those costs are probably too low. But I think Forrest is correct that when we were discussing that, at least on that piece, that was only one piece of the component. So I don't think he was attempting to mislead, nor do I want to let him believe that I changed the deal on it. So that was what he had originally discussed. But I think it's going to be more than that.
Yeah,
But we can absolutely firm up our costs and give you a little more detail.
with the numbers I show, it's about $125,000 a year just for what they'll be needing for the roads, not any other plowing, not any other responsibilities, just the future of their roads.
Yeah, and what we discussed is, you know, some of these numbers from here are far too rosy. The 300 to 400,000 on mill and overlay, chip seal for the roads where they're at, that's going to be too low. But I mean, we can break down and give all those details. But essentially, I think Forrest was correct. He was saying what they were trying to do is meet in the middle of, if they took these costs, they'd do half of it, but if we could cover the other half, that's what the deal was.
So can we get some simplified numbers, I guess?
I'll get you more detail, is what I would do, because we have Martinez's first rush when we were trying to talk about, this was at the very beginning of our discussions, this would have been back to November of last year, so we need some time to update that, and we can certainly do that, and I'll obviously give a copy to Forrest.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional discussion from the board? Okay, how would we like to proceed? Would like to proceed forward with a vote this evening or to put this off?
Motion to table?
Okay.
Until
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to table. Ms. Hogan, would you, and we have a second. Ms. Hogan, would you take roll, please?
Trustee Bornstein?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott?
yes.
Trustee Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Koopman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Kaiser?
Yes, that motion passes 7-0.
What is the date of that meeting?
October 2nd. All right. Next, public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Again, per municipal code 2.04.030, J2B, public comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. Please come forward. Yes, ma'am. And if you'd sign in, that'd be great. And you can either sit there or the podium, whatever you're comfortable with. If you would please, sir, thank you.
Good evening. At the last planning meeting, a multi-retail spot got turned into a single retail and Les Schwab tires scooted in, with the only discussion item on the public agenda being what the architecture should be, not whether or not it should be there in the first place. Would you think it's compatible planning to look into a tire yard if you lived in the condos or the Jackson Creek houses nearby? That sounds a little more like South Central Springs than Beautiful Monument. What are we going to do when an adult retail establishment wants to set up shop next to the library or next to In the Move? Maybe you'll say we have restrictions about that. Do we? I don't know. What about a tattoo parlor or a pawn shop or a methadone clinic or a junkyard or the truck stop that Larkspur has been fighting and so seems to be looking for easier prey? I have nothing against those businesses or people who use their services, but towns can make choices about what they want in their communities for better or worse. It just sounds like a cop-out when our boards say they have no control over what goes in as long as the existing requirements are met. That's the verbal equivalent of throwing up your hands. Somehow other communities manage to decide what kinds of businesses they allow and where. Why isn't there someone, preferably paid, working for the town, whose job is to investigate how other communities manage to direct their growth and bring in a mix of retail and amenities that people actually want, then rewrite our zoning to make sure retail and industrial development is compatible with not only what exists, but what we want to see going forward. We are not stuck with what we've got. We can do things like setting rules on how many and what types of businesses we want and where. That's just sophisticated planning. There is a huge assumption in this community that our interests are being looked out for by you, the boards charged with directing the growth and development of this town. But the Planning Commission is staffed by volunteers. I applaud and am truly grateful for their efforts. 20 years ago, having volunteers run this was probably adequate. It no longer is. Is it time for paid professionals to take over this role? We either get up to speed or we get bulldozed. In addition to, there's nothing we can do if they meet the requirements, the other big excuse I keep hearing is monuments only in charge of a small area. Again, that might have been fine 20 years ago, but it's definitely not working now. The town should be actively and with great haste working on combining all of these crazy, disjointed, and overlapping districts into one, so that growth can be planned in a cohesive manner. It's no wonder we're ending up with Goodwills, auto parts stores, truck stops no one else wants, cruddy roads, and overgrown medians. Look around. Everyone else seems to have figured out how to control what goes in, so of course developers see monument as easy prey. We are weak when we are divided. Our system is clearly broken, and we need to fix it before it's too late. Growth is definitely inevitable. However, a downslide into urban decay, while everyone looks the other way and a few people wring their hands, is not. It's a choice that we make every day, at every meeting, on every development application, whether we like it or not. And at the moment, that choice is being made by a few people who are under-resourced, outgunned, and in many cases don't seem to be listening to what the majority of people who commented on the comprehensive plan asked for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else from the public who would wish to come forward? All right, hearing none. Oh, then please do. If you'd sign in, state your name, please.
My name is Jeremy Ferranti. So I'm in agreement with the lady that just came forward about my disapproval with the allowance or authorizing an additional tire shop or an automotive service shop on the main thoroughfare drive through the Jackson Creek Parkway. I think that we need more competing automotive stores, automotive service stations. I think what might help in lieu of crying, I think a resolution might work best, is if a town planning commission put together and set aside lots or plats of land for industrial park development, automotive services development, restaurant establishment, entertainment, grocery, shops, boutiques, art walks, etc., instead of commingling all these things that don't go together. It doesn't make any sense. There's a big loss of identity, and that's something that the town will never be able to recover once you root down these businesses the way that they're being rooted down, the way that you're platting, and you cannot reel that back in. If you go to other small towns that have grown exceptionally well and that they tie things in well, go to downtown Castle Rock right now and see how they separated it. All the automotive and all the industrial parks are on the other side of the train track. Downtown is downtown. That's for bars, entertainment, speakeasy stuff, things where people want to walk in the town and you can go from door to door. Not, here's a tire shop, there's an art gallery, here's an automotive service station, I'm going to go across the street, get Mexican, and across the street from that there's a fast food restaurant, and now we have a park. It just doesn't make any sense commingling. You can't really walk through our town and find it appealing. We don't even have sidewalks. The only place we have sidewalks is on this side of town. You have a high school that connects to fast food establishment, and you have kids walking in grass medians on a 2-lane, unilluminated, paved highway right next to, a nursing home community. And then you have a power station, and then you have apartments, and now a tire center and a Qdoba and a gas station. It doesn't make any sense. It's totally chaotic. So I'm not in favor of the Paris tire thing, and I hope that the town can put something together to help with identity and help with creating enterprise and growth for the future. Because right now I moved here for the community, and the community is great, but the town plan is terrible.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? All right, hearing none, we will continue on.
Ms. Hayes raised
Oh, please.
I have a completely different topic and hopefully a fun topic. I'm Terry Hayes with the Tri-Lakes Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to bring up this event that we have this Saturday, Finds and Brews. It is in Limbaugh Park. If anybody's interested, I'll leave these in the back there. The money does go to benefit partially us, but also Tri-Lake Silver Alliance, which is our local senior organization, so they're out helping there too. It's a fun day filled with, we have 11 different breweries. We're going to have our local moonshine, our local cidery, and then also a few other surprises in the store. So it's $25. It's unlimited tasting for 4 hours, and we hope everybody will come out and enjoy themselves. Any questions?
Can you tell us what these surprises are?
Well, no. That's the point of surprises. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Please come forward. Sign in if you would, please.
Okay, thanks. My name is Jeff Stratton, and I'm a resident up in Higbee Estates. And along with the sentiment that Mrs. Catalano shared, as well as Mr. Ferrante shared, I do agree with those individuals and feel that something needs to be done. Another issue I'd like to bring up is I don't want to see another building or another home permit issued for a new home until we start building schools in this community. The schools are already overloaded. My son, I have 2 kids that go to Prairie Winds, and those schools are maxed out. Bear Creek Elementary's maxed out. And as far as I know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know of any plans to build a new elementary or mid-school within District 38. And yet we continue to issue new home permits to builders to do that. And we also have, I'm worried about the water consumption as well, based on the number of homes going into the area. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? This young lady had her hand up, and then you can come next.
I just want to piggyback on things that they have said.
What's your name?
Dee Rademacher.
Thank you.
I don't see how a tire shop is compatible with an apartment building. They're looking down, this apartment building's there. Now they're currently looking down on a Tractor Supply store. The only shopping they have to do, if they want to run a quick errand, is what's available in that area. There really isn't any retail, except for Kohl's, obviously, Walmart. But I just don't think it's compatible having another tire shop. It's not even so much that it's a tire shop, any type of automotive. They're looking down on that. There needs to be another a place to eat, somewhere where they're going to spend their money to bring revenue into this community. You can only buy so many tires. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, please sign in and state your name for us.
My name is Chris Sorensen. I live in Walton, and I want to reinforce and support the actions against additional tire stores. I think really the action is for the board is what is our density and mix of businesses and the overall master plan for Monument. And I say this as a resident of Walton because I had come down here for services. And when I come down here, I only have a very small amount of variety to get services. So generally what you see is folks up there, you have to move out and go down towards Northgate or even push on into Colorado Springs. So the convenience of services and opportunities for revenue for the city and tax income is very limited if we go into one particular area. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward, state your name, and sign
My
in.
name is Catherine Johnson. I live in Remington Hill, and I'm less than a tenth of a mile from the tire store that they want to put in, which is also alongside of the apartment buildings. But, you know, listening to 10 hours a day may be soothing to some, not so much to myself. But I think the bigger thing I'm concerned is we were asked to participate in focus groups to develop this comprehensive plan. And throughout that comprehensive plan, it talks about the small town atmosphere. But nobody told me when I joined the focus group that that only meant downtown, that it never counted the east side of the highway, because that is being treated like gutter wash over there. It's Autopalooza is what I'm living in. And when I chose to pay 3 times the amount for my home that I would have in Colorado Springs, I chose because I didn't want that stuff in my backyard. Otherwise, I would have stayed in Colorado Springs. So I am disappointed with what's happening. I was told to get out in front of it and get to that planning commission. And what I'm told there is, hey, all we do is recommend it. It's the board of trustees. So that was a waste of my time. I won't attend another planning meeting. All they are doing is rubber stamping and making you guys make the decision, which I would think, and I doubt that they're volunteers, but I would think that their charter would also be to look at that comprehensive plan and be in accordance with what the people of the town are wanting, not the people driving by on the highway. And when you enter, when that highway plugs up and people get off and go around, they're coming down Jackson Creek Parkway. That's where they're seeing Monument. They're not coming to downtown. That is their first impression of what our small town atmosphere is. And it isn't a small town atmosphere. You're building a senior living right there on Jackson Creek. What are they walking to? Most of those people won't be driving cars. Are they going down to get their tires changed? They got nowhere to walk to. There's no sidewalks, and it looks horrible over there. And it's auto part after auto part, and everybody you talk to, the first thing they say is, "You're kidding, another auto store." Nobody on any of our boards sees that same thing, but the people of Monument do. So all I'm asking is that you relook at that comprehensive plan, and if our process is broke and we can't pick and choose what we want as a community, then we're never gonna fix Monument. And I'm not gonna stay here, and I'm not referring anybody to move here either. So that's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
Hello, town trustees, town manager, mayor. My name is Matt Dunstan. I didn't intend to come here for this meeting other than to listen to the water stuff in the beginning, but I just wanted to say thanks to each and every one of you. I know you're all volunteers, and I know that you're here to serve and do a good job. I know that many of you are new members, and so just want to say thank you very much for that. And I know that there's always going to be tough stuff. You know, I feel it too. You know, Monument's not ideal. We have the part over here, we have the new part over there at Jackson Creek that is master plan to be a certain way, it's zone approved to be a certain way. I know that there's only so much latitude you have. I know that the free market has its own effects on things. And I know that things aren't always the way you want them to be. And so I just want to acknowledge that as well. So thank you very much. And I just wanted to end it on a positive note and say thank you to each and every one of you here.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Sure. Anybody else from the public who would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward and sign in. State your name.
Hi, my name is Alma Coragio, and I live off of Village Center, Woodmore area. Well, I'd like to first of all thank you for the time, but one thing I do have a concern is when the tire, Discount Tires is enough. We've got Christian Brothers, other shops around. I don't like that. I lived in Whitefield area, moved here 4 years ago. I love it. I like the town feeling. I feel it's more commercial now, more south. And I don't like it, but I'm sure many of you agree with me. One thing I do concern is the Jackson Creek. We talk about sidewalks. My son went to high school this past year, walked. There's no median on Jackson Creek. I worry about the snow. It's so icy. We're all concerned about tire shops and bringing more commercial here, more retail. But we need to do something as a community, as a town, to bring more safety to those streets, sidewalks. I don't like the idea of having to, in the snow, in the winter time, as I'm assuming you all live in Monument or around surroundings. You're familiar with the Jackson Creek Drive, and anywhere around. I'm not liking it at 105. There's no sidewalk coming down to, when you go down the shops to, like, say, Papa John's, all that, there's no sidewalks there. I'm concerned about that. More than anything, it's as a person living here, the family, I like to live here and retire and stay here forever, but I'm just not liking the things that's going on for everyone. It doesn't look, I don't know if you all feel the same way, but I do, and I love it here, but I just don't agree with a lot of that's going on. And it just makes it kind of look cheap. Tire shop, and I don't know, but that's just my sense. Maybe focusing more on streets, sidewalks, medians, really Jackson 105 area. It's just getting really, really crowded. Even in the charter school, there's no stoplight when you're coming to the other side off of, I think it's Camp, down on 105. There's hardly much. There's no safety, there's no street signs as far as speed limits, or even 105 or Woodmore Acres Drive, which that's where I live. A lot of speeders up there, up and down, not safe. Speed bumps would be great. I know it's impossible, but I mean, it's the whole agenda. I mean, I'm speaking for a lot of our neighbors in our area, and kind of nervous, first time ever I've done this, so, but I like to put my sense and, support the Monument people and all the surrounding area. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? All right, hearing none, we will move on to next on the agenda, board authorization items. Ms. Hogan, I understand there's a request to put a planning workshop or capital improvement workshop on our agenda.
Yeah, it was suggested that, well, obviously we need to get together to do that, but we were hoping that before the meeting, starting at 5 p.m. on October 16th, would work for you all. And if not, maybe some other suggestions could be thrown out.
I'd also add this is the CIP that wouldn't involve the water. Remember we talked about GMS too, so you could either, well, what I will need or would like from any questions or detail that you would like us to go into for the next section on the water, if you want to do it both in that same period of time, it's going to be tight.
And I'd like to see the water personally before that. I mean, if you can do a doodle poll just for extended conversation in the next week to 2 weeks, and then the 16th makes sense with budget coming up to be looking at that 5-year.
So
makes a lot of sense.
If we did a 5:30 to 6:30, just like tonight on the capital improvements outside of which the water, and then find another time for the water.
Yeah, I preferably.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hearing correctly. So.
Any
If
other?
we're just limited to the CIP, an hour should be enough on the non-water stuff.
Okay.
If you want to leave that on the 16th, and then you all can decide on another time to do water.
Okay. Is the rest of the board okay with that?
Are they gonna do doodle poll? Is that what you were just saying?
For the
For the CIP
additional
workshop on the
conversation
16th?
based on what was presented prior to this board meeting, that would be put out on a doodle poll.
Okay.
But this one is just capital improvements plan
But I mean, wouldn't it
independent.
be, I'd sort of like to be able to look at the calendar. I mean, do you wanna come out to us like you usually do, or are we trying to do that tonight? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Tonight, I'm trying to get confirmation that you're willing to do the capital improvement plan workshop before this meeting on the 16th.
So just like
Yeah,
tonight, but.
On the 16th. Okay.
At
I go along
5:30.
with that.
At 5.
Okay, so what I'm gonna have her do is the 5:30 to 6:30 is okay for the, I know it says 5, but 5:30 to 6:30 for the capital improvements plan, non-water, on the 16th. Everybody's okay with that? Okay, and then we'll send out a doodle poll for you on another time to do the water follow-up.
Okay.
Mike, got that right?
I believe that's the direction from the board. All right.
I have a, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I have one more request, and
Okay.
it came in after the board packet went out. Terry Hayes from the Chamber of Commerce has requested to deliver a presentation to you all in the near future, and she's hoping for authorization to do that.
Did she have a subject matter you'd like to talk on per se?
Just, I did it a year ago.
Okay.
Just kind of an overview of what we do, and that's just kind of it. I just think it's a good idea for me to brief you guys annually
Okay.
on that information.
November?
November would be great, because both in October I'm out of town at conferences.
Maybe.
So anytime in November.
So are we okay with that?
Yeah.
I'm seeing heads nod, so that sounds good.
And I have an additional request too, just for a possible, I mean, probably label it as a discussion item, and it doesn't have to be on any of these, depending on if the agenda's super heavy. But just based on last meeting, there was a lot of community feedback stemming to the topic of communication. And I know this is a topic that we addressed, I think, over a year ago, and how can we find ways to improve our communication as an entity to the people of this town, other than just the website. And I know that we met all legal requirements for notifications for a variety of things. What I'm looking for is discussion on is how can we truly keep the people of this community informed on what's happening, so they're not hearing about it last minute if they didn't happen to check the website about the planning commission meeting and what got approved and what didn't. I would like to see further discussion from this board to give you direction on how we can best serve the people of this community.
So are you looking for a presentation, sir?
I think probably a discussion item,
Okay.
and then at that point we can decide what we want to do, but I think that the topic needs to be addressed,
Okay.
just based on the volume of feedback.
Yeah.
I'd say recent meetings, so.
I would echo that and totally agree. I wrote down sort of a one-line summary of everything that was said here, and I wrote down below it, bottom line, how do we fix this? And I guess I'd like to hear what the board thinks. I mean, I expressed my frustration about legal requirements being met and what you're supposed to do when you take a vote, and what I'm supposed to do. And I did what I believed was right, based on what I should do, based on the information presented. But I did not like the way it was handled. I did not like the people being ignored. I did not like the fact that all they wanted was a hearing, and we never even set up a hearing. So I would like to talk, now that that's been done, and we've had this tonight again, I would like to have a discussion about what we as a board can agree and provide you to help us be more accommodating of and responsive to our community. Thank you.
So, request for a discussion item.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So we'll add that discussion on. Any other requests from the board for items on the agenda? All right, hearing none, we will move forward with the town manager's report. Mr. Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do a lot of good things between the meetings that you don't always get to celebrate, and you might be getting some discussion about things that haven't been presented to you yet. But if anybody's driven by 2nd and Front Street to see the new intersection, that is a long-standing problem that was addressed, I think that the board should be very pleased in the money that you allocated for that to occur. It's improve the safety of that corner, the accessibility. The contractor, Martin Marietta, should be specifically applauded. They were fantastic. They worked with Sean, the business owner there at Casa Fiesta, who was very pleased with how they worked with Ian. And I should also commend Mr. Martinez, if you can believe it. Some of our town staff do a very good job and did a fantastic job with communicating with that business owner, keeping the project site safe. It's just a fantastic value. I'm sorry that problem lingered or festered as long as it did, but I think you should be applauded for your commitment to fixing that. That was just terrific, and it looks great. Other than that, I don't have anything to report other than it's in the packet.
Questions for Mr. Lowe? I had one on your CSU option on your presentation. There was talk about stormwater and compliance. It was my impression that we have done things to comply with potential stormwaters. Can you give us, and maybe this is a better comment for Mr. Tharnish, an update on where the town is in compliance with stormwater requirements?
Well, I can take that, or you can get it from Tom.
Mr. Tharnish?
All right. Last time I spoke on the subject of stormwater, I believe we had 6 major projects that were in our stormwater master plan. One of them was supposed to be started this year. We're still working to get that thing going, and that is the 3rd Street drainage on the railroad tracks, and that's going to extend down to the lake with a channel, actually an RCT, so we buried underground. That's tied in with the development that's supposed to occur in that same general location. And we're just waiting for certain things from the developer to get that thing done. The other stormwater projects are not of an emergent nature, but they are on the plan. And the problem we have really in this town is we don't have a dedicated stormwater revenue stream. We have drainage basin fees that come in based on development, and that's it. Other than what we can try to budget and do smaller projects. When you mentioned the CSU option, one of their requirements is to have a fully functioning stormwater utility with a dedicated revenue stream. Right now, we would not meet that requirement. Now, we can try to do that in the future, and it's something that's going to take a lot of discussion and forethought to get that going, but eventually it's going to have to go down. If you can't rely upon the developers, if you're not developing, it's going to come back to the citizens and some kind of a revenue stream from it. But there's nothing of an emergent nature right now based on our plan. The projects that we want to get done over the next few years, we're just waiting to build up enough in that fund to support those initiatives.
Okay. Mr. Lowe, I would anticipate that at some point in time in the future we would need to understand what that cost would be to fully comply to CSU stormwater requirements. So if we could address that at some point, that would be great. The last topic for myself, loved your passion. Thank you so much. That's the passion, I think, and the leadership I think we would all like to see. So great job. I appreciate that. Any final comments for Mr. Lowe? All right, hearing none, we will move forward with the Board of Trustee comments. Any comments from the board? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Trustee Medlicott, go ahead.
Mr. Lowe, thank you for your presentation. As I jumped the gun a month and a half ago with Mr. Will's presentation about having some sort of cat herding posse or committee to move what we need to move along, I feel that this board should give you that direction to take the lead and get that regionalization moving forward. I don't know what you need from us. Do you need a motion? Do you need just a bunch of nodding heads? I think it needs to happen yesterday, and I would like to give you that direction. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think we need to move in that direction as fast as possible.
I'd like to add to that, Trustee Medlicott, and that is, this water situation is going to be very serious, and we do need to start moving. And one of the things I was thinking about in the in your presentation was, you know, the next step is to take a deeper dive at another meeting. I'd like to see us set time limits and limits on the number of meetings where we gather the information that we need to then make a decision and move forward, because I feel like we're wasting a little bit of time right now. I think we can, what you did today was very helpful to all of us. And if we can somehow put a little bit of structure behind it so we can move this forward to the decision-making point so that we can be the leaders in regionalization, that would be very helpful.
I will echo the need that we need to give you direction so you can direct your team to move the needle forward. Water is a very critical issue. It's the top priority as far as I'm concerned at this point. What I have yet to see, and maybe a glimpse of it tonight, is different options still. And while we're limited to one train of thought, it's hard to really cover all of our bases to make sure what we're giving that direction to really dive deep and drive the boat. Regionalization makes sense. We need to be driving the boat. But what does that mean? What projects are we taking the lead on? And it all comes back to one thing that we've been pushing for the past year and a half. And all I'm asking for still are options. Again, I got a glimpse of that tonight. I appreciate that. That's why I would like some further discussion. This is a long-term problem. This is a long-term solution. And it's a very expensive solution any way you look at it. So when we give you that direction, I want to make sure that we're giving you something that we all believe in. Not just saying, okay, go forward, really not knowing where you're going. My thoughts. But I agree, we need to give you direction because we have not done that.
Additional, thank you, sir. Additional board comments.
And one more after we've got hygiene. To the lovely people that stood up today, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think you're right. And I know this is going to sound like a cop-out. I don't think there's any love for metro districts on this board. They have been foisted on us by the state. We have no control over them. Absolutely no oversight. They can run up as much debt as they want. They can not do what they're supposed to be doing. They can do pretty much anything they want. Especially on the east side of the highway, unfortunately. I would love to have Jackson Creek Parkway, 4 lanes, tree lines, sidewalks up and down. It's not our call. We can't do it. It's their thing that they're in charge of. In terms of sense of space, I have had many a discussion with our town manager, and I hope to present to this board something that moves us in that direction, a calm aesthetic, you know, and providing some sort of funding to make that happen. We've discussed overlay zones for like art districts and stuff like that to make Monument a place that we want to live. And hopefully we can have something that, you know, makes us all, at least the majority of us, happy. But thank you again for being part of the conversation.
Any other comment, Trustee or Mayor Pro Tem?
First of all, I'd like to follow with what Trustee Medlicott said, and we need to give you direction. How do we need to do that, and when can we do that? I think is the question. You've presented quite a few options. You have not presented rain dancing yet, but I don't know what other options you plan on presenting. But what do we need? What's our next step on moving forward with that?
I think an adoption of the capital improvements plan for the next 5 years would at least be a statement as the board, a collective desire by the board to work on those projects. To the extent that those have projects or options identified to the exclusion of others, essentially are telling me that. I mean, I am a little unclear as to I mean, there are only a finite number of options. I mean, because of the reality of hydraulics, the reality of where water is, what access we can give, and how much we have to pay for options. So I've tried to give you a list of options within 3 major areas, both the current infrastructure, possible management of return flows, and really your option on renewable is just dependent on location. So there's no other way to find another. I can't make a different river that comes through here that's renewable that we can get to. We know where they are. Fortunately, on this side of the divide, they're limited. So I just think as we refine and sharpen a capital improvements plan that you all like and believe includes the things that you want to see us pursue, if that gets adopted, that goes a long way toward at least telling me and our staff which options you prefer to the others.
Okay, so when we have an official capital improvements, I mean, are we talking like as we go through the budget, next year's budget?
Yeah, this budget, we include, these capital improvement budgets are intended to be included in your ultimate budget consideration of the whole thing. And those items that make it into that list will be the ones we work on for at least that period of time. Obviously, it can change, but that would certainly give us direction for 2018 on what we should be doing.
Okay. And then, Mr. Bishop, our comprehensive plan is available online, isn't it?
It is, sir, yes.
Okay. And from my understanding, we have over 800 acres of commercial property currently available.
I can't give you a hard figure on that. I'd have to go back and visit the plan.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hogan, that's not something you can answer either? I wasn't trying to neglect you. I just thought website, he might know. So, you know, one thing I've heard is that the need for like restaurants, like Trustee Medlicott mentioned, we can start overlay zones. I believe if we want to look into that, we had over 1,000 people participate in the comprehensive plan from all areas of this community, not just the town of Monument. We have a lot of vacant land and a lot of places that could be here. If they're not ready to be here, they're not ready to be here, and they're not, you know, they have certain criteria that they meet for opening their business. Personally, I work in Castle Rock. Between Perry and Fifth, there are 4 car repair places and 1 car dealership. Just a couple other items I want to hit on real quick. Last Planning Commission meeting, the school district did present their build-out plan for what they are working on, and they have some really good ideas of combining, moving, all sorts of stuff they're already in the progress of working on. And the last thing I had was reiterating that the state controls metro districts, we don't.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Elliott, you said you had some comments?
I do want to mention for anyone that is living in the Tri-View Metropolitan District, they have a meeting once a month at the Fairfield Inn, and the meeting time and date is on their website. Sometimes it's kind of deep in their website, so do a little looking. But do try to go there because they're obviously the Jackson Creek area. If we want to see improvements there, we've got to go to the Tri-View meetings on a regular basis and make sure that they hear what we need in the Tri-View district.
Thank you. Let's see if other trustees who haven't had the opportunity to speak yet. Oh, you haven't spoken yet?
I have not spoken.
Really?
Board member comments.
You have, oh, okay, in that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. First, again, to echo the sentiment, thank you for speaking of your frustration with some of the planning options here. Although I don't necessarily agree with the process that we accomplished our comprehensive plan update, minus the community involvement, we have a very good comprehensive plan that came out of that. I know Pro Tem Wilson as well as Trustee Bornstein were part of those focus groups as well as many, many others. I do believe there is very strong verbiage in our comprehensive plan that outlines exactly what the intent and the voice and the vision of the people that call our community home. I do believe that is in there. The downside about the comprehensive plan, again, it's a guide. It's a resource that the Planning Commission uses to see, does something fall in line with this particular zoning area is an approved use. We learned that with the methadone clinic incident about 2 years ago. And Trustee Elliott made the comment last meeting, I believe, you can't pick and choose if you want a Starbucks or if you want another Serrano's. But the comprehensive plan does very specifically say what the people of this community want. The verbiage is in there, and that is, as far as I'm concerned, the voice of the people. When we are up here, it does come to us. We get the ultimate approval. It's recommended from the Planning Commission. It comes to us. It is up to us to make that determination if it meets all of those requirements. And one of those requirements, and a main requirement, is does this particular proposal, is it in substantial compliance with the town's comprehensive plan? So I ask you all who have voiced your frustration, as well as the entire community, hold us accountable for fulfilling the vision and what is outlined specifically in the updated comprehensive plan.
Sorry for
That's all
speaking over your counter. Where can that document be found, or where is that specifically located?
Townofmonument.org document center, the comprehensive plan is right there.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the Metro, forgive me again for...
They all have their own websites for the different
Metro district, you said that ultimately is the layer of the town meets at the Fairview?
Yeah, the Tri-View Metro District, which is the Jackson Creek area, meets once a month at the Fairfield Inn, and their meeting dates and times are posted on their website.
Okay.
And so they're in control of that district.
That's right.
Sidewalks, roads, planting.
And how many different metro districts? What was the last count?
16.
16 different metro
Was it
districts
16?
in our area.
Just
a lot.
Or districts,
Can I
special district.
make a proposal or move that the board puts in front in the next minutes for the town meeting, all the districts and what they're responsible for the town of Monument, and how to get in touch with them and where the meetings are held, have them added to the itinerary of the next meeting?
Actually, sure, I'm not positive, but I believe that if you look up the comp plan, it lists them and their locations.
Okay.
I believe.
Trustee Elliott, any other? Oh, Trustee Bornstein? Trustee Murphy? All right. In closing, I'd like to thank you again, Mr. Lowe. You presented a lot of options to us, and I think you did an outstanding job. I also want to thank Mr. Tharnish. I know you guys worked extremely hard on that. You've come up with a lot of options, and I appreciate all your diligence and following through on that. Also want to thank, we've talked a lot about our comp plan tonight. Also thank Trustee Bornstein and Mayor Pro Tem Wilson and the many other participants who took part in that study. I think Trustee Koopman commented on that extremely well, so I want to thank you. And just a note, about 2/3 of our residents are in the Tri-View Metropolitan District, just so you know, of the Town of Monuments residents. So just a point of interest that some people have asked me. So that being the case, Ms. Corley, would you move us into executive session?
I recommend the motion to recess and enter executive session for the discussion of a personnel matter, the town manager contract pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-4022F.